Hello, and welcome to another special episode of Conversations with Agents of Change. Today's episode is a little different. On Friday, 5th of July, I had the pleasure of hosting Stage the Change at the wonderful Stendhal Festival in Northern Ireland. Stage the Change is an initiative by the Change Impact Group created to give change makers a platform to share ideas, challenge perspectives, and ignite conversations about the issues that affect us all. Rather than simply talking about change, we bring together people from different backgrounds who are actively shaping it. There couldn't have been a better setting than Stendhal Festival, one of the UK's last remaining independent festivals. Every year, it brings together local communities and visitors from across the UK and beyond, creating a unique space where music, arts, culture, and ideas all come together. It felt like the perfect place to have conversation about one of the defining technologies of our generation, artificial intelligence. When people talk about AI, the conversation often becomes polarized. Some see limitless opportunity, others focus on the risks. Our aim wasn't to tell people what to think, it was to help them think more deeply. To do that, we brought together four very different perspectives. First, you'll hear Virginia Mendez, who works in gender equality and education. Virginia explores how AI doesn't simply create bias, it can amplify the biases that already exist in society, making fairness and inclusion a design choice rather than an afterthought. Next is Esteban Rocha, an AI solutions architect who explains how rapidly AI is changing what's possible, from building applications in minutes to helping communities respond to real world disasters. Esteban reminds us that AI is an incredibly powerful tool, but one that demands education and responsibility. You'll then hear Alistair Wilkinson, a materials scientist and cement chemist who take us behind the digital world and into the physical one. His talk reveals the enormous infrastructure required to power AI, from concrete to steel to energy, water, and data centers, and why the sustainability of that infrastructure matters just as much as the technology itself. Finally, I'll share my own talk, The Hidden Impact of AI, where I explore what I call the digital visibility gap, the environmental costs we rarely see behind every prompt we type. While AI has extraordinary potential, I believe we also need greater transparency about the energy, water, and materials required to make it all possible. After the talks, we come together for a live panel discussion with questions from the audience, exploring everything from accountability and regulation to education, governance, and the future of responsible AI. One message keeps resurfacing throughout the conversation. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a question of what technology can do. It's a question of how we choose to use it. As I said at the end of the session, I believe the next frontier of AI is no longer intelligence, it's accountability. I hope you enjoy the conversation and that it leaves you with a few more questions to reflect on to the next time you open ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or whichever AI tool you choose to use. Let's head to the stage the change tent at Stendhal Festival. I hold a podcast called Conversations with Agent of Change. She was my guest very recently, and she was telling me all about gender equality and all the different biases and all that. And I thought, I need to bring you over so we can talk about AI and gender bias.
Thank you very much. My name is Virginia Lee, and I've been working for 9 years in topics all intersectional fabrics, gender equalities. And you can imagine the conversation has moved. There's been a lot of questions and conversations about AI, which seems to have taken over everything. And a big part of my work is focused on early years. And the hill I will always die on is that a lot of the things are not nature, they're nurture. A lot of the difference we talk about. And I study and explain bias and the self-fulfilling prophecy of gender stereotypes or any other kind of stereotypes. And I think it's very important when we talk about artificial intelligence that we don't see it as something neutral or rational. And we understand that we get out of it a lot of what we put in it. And the system and the information and the way we're training AI is not neutral or outside the system. It's perpetuating, escalating, and industrializing a lot of the bias that we already have in society. So there's some of examples of that we've seen in real life. Twitter tried an AI chat box called Tay, and it lasted less than 24 hours before it became insanely like Nazi and saying salutes and using the N-word. They had to stop it after 24 hours, and it started blank, completely blank. And Amazon had a tool for hiring people, and they thought it was gonna be more rational and more equitable. But of course, because it predict based on history, very soon it started penalizing women because there were less women in those kind of jobs. So it understood that women was not something that it was desired, and it started penalizing them in their CV. And even more dangerously, the Compass tool that they use, it's been obviously fixed and retweaked, in the prison system in America was taken and was replicating very racial bias. And it was estimating that Black people and racialized people were more likely to be reincidents and stopping them to access freedom quicker. And I think sometimes because it's a machine telling us, it feels like, oh, it must be fair. So I think that point of understanding that we are part of it. Just to finish, because I know we only have very short time each, I think it's important also that we don't blame ourselves personally, but we see the power we have as a consumers. The same way that whenever you buy a jumper in Primark, you're not personally responsible of all the damages of fast fashion in the world, and they are bigger things and they're part of the system. It doesn't mean that whenever you understand that who is being exploited, what is being extracted, what is the payment that as a society and in the environment we're paying for, it doesn't make your decisions a little bit more intentional. So I think the talk today, where everybody else is going to focus, I think, a lot about the environment, hopefully give us that extra knowledge and that extra reason to vote as consumer and decide how and which ones or which platforms we deal with whenever we do about AI, because just because it's here to stay doesn't mean that we don't all have a say and that we don't all choose how to utilize this for the best.
That was very insightful, Virginia. Now I would like to introduce our chair because he's going to be helping us. So would you like to tell us something about you?
Sure. My name's Vincent Losley. I'm from Queen's University, and my research focus is about society and how we make decisions, hopefully that aren't catastrophic. So AI is very topical at the minute and very interesting for us in terms of our decisions being made that are just and fair, and in fact, what can we do about them?
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And Esteban. So I brought Esteban because I wanted you to talk about the technology as such, but please tell us about yourself.
Absolutely, thank you. My name is Esteban Rocha. I'm from Venezuela. I've been here now 7 years, but my career has been around in technology for the past 10, 12 years actually. So when it comes to technology, it's always an angle of innovation, and we have to kind of look at how AI has been developed in the past years, from simple chatbots to the complex models that we have access right now. And I think with that, we have seen what I call it a Cambrian explosion of applications that are available to us. Before, you needed to hire a developer, you need to have the funds, you need to spend so many months perhaps to develop a simple application, but that time has reduced considerably. Now, just in plain English, I can talk to Claude or ChatGPT or the other ones and ask simple, hey, develop this application, help me to get these elements, explore or do analytics about this data. I think that gives us a tremendous power to achieve more, but at the same time, it comes with a cost as well, because at the back of all of that, we have to think about the resources that we need, the data centers that we have to put in place to get all this compute energy. And to be honest, This is something that I grew up recently, and the world is not short on petrol. It's short on tokens. Tokens is the currency of AI, and everything that you put in that chat with ChatGPT, Claude, and the other ones is transformed into tokens. So that basically is the power that we're consuming. Just like you use the power of electricity in your house. You turn on the light, you consume the energy. The same is with these tokens whenever you ask AI anything about it. And that's one area that I wanted to explore, but the other one is on a positive side in this is that last week you might seen on the news that my country, Venezuela, has been hit by the earthquake. In fact, I am from La Guaira, that's my birthplace. And within hours, there was no communication, it was difficult to get people, and you can imagine the anxiety to not know where are your loved ones, your friends, the people you grew up with. So there's lack of communication, there's lack of initiative, coordination by the government. So what people did was create applications. Where can I find these people? They created a website. Where are the buildings that are damaged? They create an application to track those damages and so on. I can tell you about the hundreds of applications that have been created since the earthquake in Venezuela. I think that's very positive because it shows you that, again, you don't need the budget, you don't need the tools, you don't need to wait long hours, months, or any other elements. You just need to have a clear idea and then ask the AI to build it. Again, this is very good, but at the same time, is the cost associated with it. I just wanted to talk about these elements and how somehow we have now the power to create applications, and we can make it for really good elements, of course, but at the same time, we have to be educated about the impact that these applications might have for us, for our children, and the future generations upcoming. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insights. That was really, really good. I would like to continue now with Alistair. So I think it's very interesting that we are bringing so many perspectives. So Alistair, he's been a guest on my podcast as well, and his expertise material for Please Tell Us Founders Ash.
Yep, so I'm very much the odd one out in this group. By background, I'm a cement chemist. I've worked my whole career researching cement, sustainable materials, sustainable concrete, and really just how do we build things better. So my first question when Izzy asked me to get involved was, why the cement guy? I'm pretty non-technical when it comes to computers and that type of thing. But when you break it down really, really simply, you realize that there's a whole kind of new, almost industrial revolution going on with AI, with high technology, all of that. But you start to scratch below the surface and you realize, well, actually, there's a lot of physical infrastructure. So when you look at the likes of the largest data center in Ireland, there's about 140 data centers. The largest one in Ireland is the Meta Centre in County Meath. 6 phases. The first 2 phases alone consumed 140,000 tons of concrete. It's absolutely colossal. So really, when you start to hear statistics like that, we're quickly framing this as infrastructure, not just a technological revolution. So for me, where I've come from, it's looking around, how do we build this better? We almost have to have 2 revolutions going in parallel, so we're not doing one potentially great thing. If AI is used properly, it's phenomenal, but the damage we could be causing on the backside of that. So you look at a data center as any type of industrial building. It takes up land, it uses water, colossal amounts of water, colossal amounts of electricity, concrete, steel, silicon chips. Microchips it's one of the most complex processes that man has ever created. So that one kind of single ChatGPT prompt, when you start to even think about what goes in behind that, there's so much happening behind the scenes. So really the question for me in the industry that I'm in, it's not so much how can AI help us. I use it every day. I fact check, I come up with a great idea, the next big thing, the next revolution in material science, ask ChatGPT, has somebody done this? Yeah, 40 universities, a dollar side of the world have already done this. Back to the drawing board. So it's a phenomenally useful tool. But the difference between this and previous industrial revolutions, in years gone by, when we had the major industrial revolution, we started burning coal, started generating electricity with coal-fired power plants. It's all very dirty. The difference this time is we've got enough awareness, there's enough research has gone into behind the scenes where we understand now that kind of linear economy, for want of a better term, the extract, consume, dispose kind of nature of what we've done in the past won't work anymore. And we know now how to make things more circular. And that's from kind of regenerating waste materials, which is kind of my day job at the moment, down to, well, actually, can we design buildings and can we design structures with potential reuse and a second life in mind? So, for me, it's very much that mindset of every time you ask Spotify to recommend a playlist or recommend a song, there's land has been consumed, there's concrete, there's carbon. It's a much more physical footprint than we probably recognise without giving it a great deal of thought.
Absolutely. I agree with what you guys have said, because there's so much we can say about AI. I think the way we are interacting with AI is, the AI is not thinking by itself, it's learning from us. So as you said, it might be biased because of us and as a result of us. If there's applications, it's not that the AI create the apps itself, we create them ourselves. So the way we are choosing what applications are we doing or are we creating is obviously going to impact all of us and generations to come. So I love to hear good stories about that. It's not just about memes and videos of dogs or whatever. I think it's the way we are choosing to do things. And again, I want to touch on Alistair's point. When we type on any platform that uses AI, we can choose what we're saying. And most of us might think, when we type something, it's weightless. We don't see the waves, we don't see the noise, we don't see the use of water. But when you think about it, it's not a cloud as such. It's just a term, but it's not really a cloud. It's made of buildings, it's made of materials, it's made of all the water and the energy that is behind all that. So when we are typing, I would like us to think, is this creating any value? Or are we just using it because it's available? I think that for us as human beings, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, if you're a student or we need to think, are we doing this just because it's a trend or because it's available, it's accessible, or because we are going to use it for something positive to help people find their families or to do some research or to find materials or new materials to or to prevent problems from happening or to reduce the impact that we have. So I think in particular, there is an amazing hidden cost that is the environmental one. And there's a statistics that I want to share with you. 40% of the energy that is used for AI, the 40% is used just to cool the systems. It's not the energy that is used to answer the questions that we might have. It's just to cool them. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were working towards finding machines that were fast enough to compute all we wanted. Now it's, okay, how do we cool them down? And it's using a lot of energy, a lot of water that we are needing for other areas. So the energy cost is not happening in our doorstep, might be further away. So we need to be responsible for that. So this is not an anti-AI talk, as you see. It's yes, AI came to stay here. Now let's use it properly. So my argument is very simple. We cannot use and govern AI without learning the implications of it. And my argument is the same way we have nutritional value listings or we have energy disclosure of fuel of our vehicles or our appliances. I would love to see a future in where we type something and it says, yeah, but I'm using so many liters of water or so many kilowatts or whatever. So we can make sure that I'm using it for the right reasons, or if you're using it, you know that it's not invisible. So that's what I call the digital visibility gap. And I wrote a book about carbon currency, and I will explore that deeper there. But it's about the cost. For us, when we are users, we only see magically appear the answer. We type something, it just thinks a little bit, and it appears suddenly.
but that is a lot behind that is hidden from us. So the more we think about it and more we talk about it, the better consumers we can be, the better we can ask for transparency at every level. And I'm not saying, oh, we shouldn't use AI. It's not about individual guilt, because that's not going to solve any problem. It's about the transparency that we can grow within companies and organizations. And so my appeal to you is, next time you use AI, think first, do I really need it? Is it going to create any value? Is it because I want to create something positive? Is there any knowledge behind that is going to be used? Or is it going to be disposable content that really nobody needs to see? So just think about that, and think about the statistics in terms of the energy that's consumed, and think about the bias, and think about the applications. Are we going to use AI for something that is going to help us as a society to grow, to look after our world? Or are we just using it for fun? And I would like us to look into the materials. There's amazing opportunities out there. I was recently interviewing someone for my podcast, Conversation with Agents of Change. They are trying to use glass to start cooling down the systems, which just blew my mind. So it's just about finding different materials to explore solutions that are there. I use AI as well. My background is IT. I'm not saying don't use it. Let's just use it responsibly for things that are going to leave something behind. So then again, something we would like to explore with the panel is, do we think that AI should have a label that says, what is our carbon footprint and how are we going to develop that? I'll give it back to you, to the direct share.
Okay, one thing that strikes me is when we think about AI, we think of maybe, we witness it in the media. We witness it with like Trump's Truth Social. And we wonder how much, when we're using AI, when we're asking Claude questions, is it feeding off my biasness? Is it feeding if I'm prejudiced, if I'm a male chauvinist, or if I'm racist and I'm asking questions? Is it reinforcing my prejudices? Is the learning model only responding to my prompts? Or does it challenge me to think maybe I am being prejudiced or biased? Could I have your thoughts on that?
I think we could, and that could, and I think that's the beauty of working intentionally. I think the people deciding the tools still have the opportunity to make that a priority and make it intentional. They can decide, we are going to program or we're going to build these tools in a way that whenever we see bias, that we have research and make sure that there is diversity in our teams, and they're sure that that's our priority as well. And they can respond to you, educating you or challenge you or inviting you to look further. The problem is that if whenever we are creating those tools, that is an afterthought and there's something that we correct after, and we correct because there's already been harm and there's already been people that have had to protest and have to go to that, and we've seen the problem, we are missing a great opportunity and it's never going to be as good. But again, if the people building those tools are very non-diverse, and if the things that they're making them their priorities and what the stakeholders want are money and revenue and profit over impact and diversity and inclusion and belonging, all of those kind of things, then we're going to be seeing very, very different products and very different outcomes.
Could I just ask one final question? Because I find this really fascinating in terms of, we're using AI now in autonomous vehicles. We're using it in medicine. What happens when things go wrong? What happens when those technologies, when AI has led to really catastrophic results? Who's responsible? Who's accountable? Is it the tech companies? Is it the government? Or is it the users? Is it us? Can I have your views on that?
I think it's all of us. However, it would be very unrealistic to think that is only one player that has the responsibility. I think that we all need to focus on what is our accountability as users, as companies, as tech developers. It is all of us, and we have degrees of responsibility here. And I think that when it comes to the tech companies, they would have to be more
transparent in the way they are making the decisions or feeding the systems. In terms of users, would be like, when are we choosing to use those technologies and how? And when it comes to governments as well, the same thing. We need to have established metrics that will allow us to have something standard that we would say that is safe enough, or this is not the way it should be, or what are the metrics? How are we going to compare things? But that's my penny of a thought.
Thank you. I just want to add that I don't know if you've seen the news recently, but not so long ago, the US blocked a particular model that apparently is so powerful that they thought it was best not to give it that model to the rest of the world, just the US citizens. I think that tells you that models are getting better and better and better. And with that, the things that comes in my mind is, are the models that really good that someone can use it for creating something really bad or develop some kind of chemical weapon or things like that? So the responsibility has to be definitely on our side, but also on the governments or technologies too. I think we are starting to lean into an area where these models might be unprecedented in the sense of, okay, where are the security parameters that we are going to put there to prevent bad things to happen? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I know that more restrictions should be applied. We cannot just have a free will and then let these models, be with everyone. I don't think this is just something like, selling shops, selling products just like that. We're talking about models that can give you years of study or expertise in chemicals or expertise even in making your own gun at your fingerprints, at your keyboard. I think that has to kind of land very well with everyone, that the power of knowledge has reduced in a simple typing. And so when you are typing something, or when you asking, help me with this essay, or help me to get this component or something like that, think about what are you asking and what are you asking for. I think that is an education a part that everyone should learn for interacting with AI.
I would guess to say something for completeness. No, to be fair, I agree with the guys. I think there's so much down to regulation. There's so much down to how the processes are managed. But at the end of the day, certainly at the moment, and we're still not certain how things are going to evolve, so much of the responsibility comes down to us as users. So if we're taking advice from Claude or Gemini or whatever, and we're applying that to our day-to-day lives, our jobs, the algorithm doesn't really care if it's right or wrong. It's up to us to decide how we apply what we're being told. So certainly at the moment, as things evolve, I think that regulation becomes more and more important, but definitely how we use it is probably the biggest issue at the moment that I can see.
I just want to add that we also have to follow the money. I mean, we cannot separate responsibility from profitability, and also that piece of critical thinking. Like, we are going to be the users, but we need to require governments. Those governments that are going to make that regulation to protect us, that are going to have an education system that create or that help children to have more critical thinking and all those kind of things. We are voting as well. Really, like, who do we have in the power? And they are gonna have to make very important decisions. So I think keeping in mind that the people that we're voting are gonna be responsible of a lot of outcomes that we're gonna see now in AI, it's important. And how they're gonna be dealing with these big organizations that are taking the money. Because at the end, if we are having policies and politics that pander to the people with the millions rather than the society, we are going to see, again, very different results.
Could I maybe ask, is there anybody in the audience that has a question for the panel? Anything that you'd like to, any concerns? Anything that you'd like to maybe get off your chest or challenge them to think about?
I have a very basic question that I would think about, and it's probably for maybe on Concrete Man. You hear about how much water it takes, how much heat it generates. In a country such as Ireland, we can do the heat. Is that heat being reused and recycled into households, or is there a way that can be?
There's certainly ways it can be. There's no doubt about that. Whether it's being done, I don't honestly know, but it's not dissimilar to my previous job. I worked as a technical manager in a cement plant where we're generating colossal amounts of heat, and one of the projects we were working on was recovering that waste heat, using it to generate electricity. I'm from Cookstown. There's a company in Cookstown that actually have done work on the London Underground, recovering heat from that. But you know yourself, it gets hot in the summer, it's hot in the winter. So certainly the technologies out there for community heating, for whatever you want to do. I'm not honestly aware of it, but it certainly makes a lot of sense and something that we should be looking at for sure.
Okay. Is there any other questions? If anybody else would like to, anything you want to say? Come on, I can only go so far. Ask away.
I'm just curious. One of the interesting consequences the US having this decision in a strict fail in Project Scalable was it actually exposed this vulnerability that I think we have potential, certainly outside of the US especially, we're at the point of quite reliant on moving models for our development work. You know, in our personal lives, but also in our work lives. Actually, that exposed the reality that we may not always have access to them, and there's a lot of disparity, I think, in terms of access to information, like access to processing capacity in a sense. And so I'm curious, the model weightings can fit on a USB stick, but the actual models are really small. So I'm thinking, just because you spoke to that directly, so I'm curious whether you've explored running the models locally on your own machine at all, or do you have any knowledge or see a future where we actually start removing ourselves from the systematic data warehousing, but still retain access to the hub, if you like?
Thank you. Yes, I think I understood the question and kind of the topic here. So basically, there's the two areas to think of. You have models that is being processed by companies, and they're kind of online. And there's kind of what is called local models. Basically, you have a piece of code that you can install it in your computer, and you can run the model yourself. You have more privacy, or you have more control whenever you can work those models locally. What is the good and bad thing about these two items is that the local model, you have more control over it. You don't allow the information to pass to a data center. You protect yourself with those local models. When the online ones, let's say, you might have control, but the reality is not. Because those companies will love to train on your data. Whenever you type, hey, was the word typo? I have this problem about it. I'm pretty sure they're gonna use that data to retrain these models, and they get better and better in the future. So my personal preference is, if you can do it, the local model on your machine, do it. Because you are basically putting that gates for these companies, Amazon, Cloud, or whatever it is going to be. You're putting that gates to not exposing your personal data to them.
Okay, we're starting to compete with next door. Maybe just one last final question. Is there one thing, if it was Christmas and you were allowed one wish, is there one thing that maybe you could recommend that we do that would make AI, artificial intelligence, better for society?
From my end, if that's okay, seeing what just happened in Venezuela and the good heart that people had for developing these applications, I think it has to come with education at the early stages, but for all ages, of course, is what good are we doing with these models? What applications are we doing with this? I think that it has to be really embedded in our society. We cannot let our time pass and not be aware of the potential this technology has, because I'm pretty sure someone else would take advantage of it. So my pledge here for Christmas would be teach everyone the good things about it and the constraints, of course, apply constraints. So the models can be used for the bad things, like how can I make a gun or how can I make a bomb or stuff like that. Okay.
Thank you, because the music is loud. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again. And just to leave you with one last thing, I personally think that the frontier for AI is not intelligence anymore; it's accountability. So if we can all focus on that and reflect on that, that'd be great. So anyway, enjoy the festival, and thank you so much for joining us at Say to Take.
This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.